we have another Dan, right? Is this Dan?
Yeah.
How you doing?
Dan Farrell. How you doing, buddy?
Good.
I called in earlier. Big shout out to the Ustream.tv people.
Yes.
UBJ time. I don't know if a lot of people know. I wanted to get the word out that your broadcast is actually also available on the internet live on Ustream.tv, right?
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
There's the information.
Lots of different formats.
Yes. I actually did have a question, though, and that is to Matt and possibly the co-host whose name escapes me. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Don.
Don. Matt and Don. You guys know more about the Bible than I do. I did used to be a Christian, but I was the kind of Christian that didn't really study the Bible.
Mm-hmm. So you were like 99% of the Christians on the planet.
Precisely. I'm the kind of Christian that looks for warm and fuzzy answers more than biblical answers. But my question is, two-part question. Part one is, did Jesus die for so that we would no longer be responsible for the sins of our forefathers, or am I incorrect in that interpretation?
It's going to depend, I guess, on which variety of Christians you want to talk about. One of the general kind of orthodox views is that he died as a payment for all sins. That once upon a time, every sin had to have some kind of blood sacrifice, and that Jesus came down and became the ultimate blood sacrifice for all sins that had occurred prior to his arrival, and all sins that would occur forever in the future.
Well, one of the interpretations that I was taught as I went to a church in my area that was actually broadcast on TV, one of the interpretations that I was taught was that Jesus died so that we would no longer be responsible for the sins of our forefathers. You know how they would punish, like, not just the fathers and the people responsible in Egypt, but their sons and their grandsons.
His whole reason for existing was because of original sin, right? That we are all supposedly tainted with this original sin, and if we didn't have that sin, there wouldn't be much reason for Jesus existing. So his sacrifice.
Well, there's two different issues. Yeah. There's what he's talking about is this idea from the Old Testament that the sins of the father would be passed down to the son under the fourth generation, etc. That's a different thing from original sin.
Yes.
That's your grandpa did something, and we're going to hold you responsible for it. Yes, it's very curse-like, and there's a lot of that superstitious stuff in the Old Testament. Then there's also what Don's talking about, which is the idea of original sin, the original fall, how sin entered the world, and all this other stuff. None of it makes any sense.
None of it's black and white, and so it's subject to spin.
And so they can spin it any way they want to. In general, though, yeah, it's in general that Jesus' death, I refuse to call it a sacrifice because I'm not convinced that it happened, but I don't see how it's a sacrifice to, go through a little punishment and then get to be God at the end of it. But it's supposedly there to abolish the responsibility of all sin, the onus placed by forefathers, and for original sin, and for whether or not when you went and played with yourself afterwards. So.
Well, and Martin Luther, the founder of Protestantism, had this interesting quote of if you don't go out and sin, Jesus' sacrifice would have been in vain. That you should sin, but you should love God more. Which is very interesting, right? He actually encouraged people to sin, but love Jesus so much that it doesn't matter, right? That you still get to cash in at the end. I thought that was very interesting, especially from the founder of Protestantism.
If Jesus died for our sins so that we would not be responsible for the sins of our ancestors, then why is childbirth still painful, and why is all that crap? But you kind of answered that.